I better learn to swim very quickly, Cliff.
Well, the thing is, these days, though, we actually have some, it's everybody gets on my case about this, I can't build a boat and stuff, and I say, well, look, I'm actually fairly poor, and I'm building a boat around a $700 used Sharpie boat hull that I've ripped the deck and everything off. You can do it cheap. You have to be smart about it. I'm building out of plywood and boat resin and polyester cloth and stuff. But I can make it unsinkable, and I can make it self-righting. And even if the boat were to be hit by a meteor and bust into a bunch of pieces, none of the pieces would sink. Given that, I think that's the best I can do towards helping get somebody through this.
Sure, absolutely. Well, this kind of brings us, my next question is going to kind of bring us up to the next string of data here.
Yeah.
And this is just lingering in the back of my head. Watching on a political scale the powers that be from one country to the next, and with the banks and the Illuminati doing what they are doing, I can't help but think that there's an incredible power grab going on right now, which usually makes me think that they know something that they're not saying.
I agree with you. That's pretty obvious. Yeah.
Yes. So it brings us to the next string of data, which is markets. Failure of what am I looking at here? Failure of sorcery, is that it? Rot and fester. Road to Zimbabwe. What is this? What is this?
Well, here's the situation. Actually, you talked about the Illuminati and everything, and there's and the banking interest and all of this, and it doesn't really matter how you think about it, but the group of people that run all the banking situation have been trying to keep the dollar alive, and I think they were trying to keep it alive all the way up to 2012. Unlike everybody else out there in the woo-woo world, who may have some justification, maybe I'm wrong. I see the dollar death as being a natural occurrence because all paper currencies die.
Yes.
And it should have actually happened in when Nixon took us off the gold standard or shortly thereafter.
Yes.
And they've been propping it up as the world petrodollar ever since. And I actually think that it would suit them better, just from my viewpoint of their interest, to have kept it going so that we were all complacent all the way right up through 2012, and then they just go in their little hidey hole and everything goes kablooey.
Right.
But it would seem the universe wouldn't allow that. And so now they're in a situation where all of their manipulations, their stimuluses, their back-channel deals, and all the lying and the cheating and the thieving and the murdering, and we've got to be very clear about this. A lot of people are, very, very prominent people have been killed over this kind of stuff. And all of that's has put a certain amount of universal pressure on there, and our data suggests that the markets are in for a shock that will not only essentially be the last of the dollar as a global international currency. It'll finish it very rapidly. But at the same time, all kinds of secrets will be revealed by the exposures, the cracks in the system that will come with this very precipitous economic shock that's awaiting us in probably a few short weeks.
That's interesting because there was an article that came out recently in the UK Times, I believe it was, where they were talking about that the administration is building up troops in the United States, and that that others in other countries, other observers have said that they're preparing for like a civil war in the United States, and that it was inevitable that it was going to happen because once the American people find out exactly how badly they have been screwed and how bad it really is, there's going to be a major uprising.
I would agree with the major uprising, and I dispute the Civil War. I've seen the articles and so forth, and I think it's fear-mongering on the part of the powers that be to try and get the specific response from two separate groups and to puff up their power base. I've done analysis, and I spent 17 years in the military and saw it from the inside. And, growing up, I internalized it all. So I always go and do analysis on math, and it is not feasible for the United States to field 100 or a million troops with guns in their hands within the United States, within the continental U.S. as a occupation force. They just do not exist.
Yes.
And most of our forces are now highly trained electronic kind of guys, not infantry per se. And if you go and look at our actual readiness and the fact that we've got 1,000 military bases in 158 different countries,
yeah.
we're spread so thin and so on, it just is not going to happen. Even if they hauled everybody back, theoretically you would have your millions of personnel, but of those, many of them are cooks and bakers and accountants and so on.
Right.
And they're just not going to be very much use to you in a policing or civil war action. So I find that incredible. I don't believe those rumors. I do find it credible that we're going to have one hell of a revolution because everybody's really pissed off and they're just not going to take it anymore. As we're seeing evidenced, by the way, in Italy. You know, in Italy we get Berlusconi getting punched in the face. Over here we get Palin getting tomatoes. You know?
Yes.
People are reviled. There's a how do I say this? An entourage level of wannabes and political addicts who are still thinking that this system is worthwhile and that voting for a Democrat or a Republican makes sense.
Yes.
And they're still out there worshiping these people and, you know, falling around like they're toadies. But I find that level of political involvement is way down these last couple of years.
Yes.
Next year, I think it's just going to fade entirely.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really do. And, you know, it's fascinating when you sit back and watch, specifically with the Climate Gate, with the climate, conference, there in Denmark, when Al Gore, well, I thought he was going to avoid the place, entirely. I think he would show up.
Probably would have been wise, yeah.
Yeah, and he shows up and he does his speech and he quotes a professor or a scientist talking about the polar caps are going to be melted in the next 5 years, according to this, and this is fresh data. When the scientist was asked about this, the scientist says, wait a minute, this is a conversation that me and Mr. Gore had years ago, and there would be no way that I would put it within a specific thing. It was like a ballpark figure. It wasn't really anything based off of. They continue to just lie, not only on that front, but across the board. And they're doing it so blatantly now that everyone is looking at it going, they can see right through it, but they keep saying the same thing, thinking that people are going to buy it. And some are, unfortunately, but others are just like, oh, come on. Are you kidding me?
Their universes of potential salespeople, so to speak, or purchasers of their lies is actually shrinking. Mm-hmm. And we're actually probably seeing an effect that we used to note in the software industry. There was this thing called Moore's Law, which talked about the doubling of the computing capability every year, but there's these other theorems within the computing industry. One of them is really cool, called Crossing the Chasm.
Yes.
And it said, here's how an organization adopts technology, and it lays it out for you. And at some point in the technology adopting, there's this like chasm where nothing really happens, and then you got maybe a third of the company that's all hyped on a technology and it sort of lies there, nothing really happens. Then all of a sudden, it crosses the chasm, and the rest of the company goes absolutely batty over it, and everybody adopts it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where we're at. The woo-woo world, as I call it, is about ready to cross the chasm and get into the mainstream to where maybe 18 to say 20 or 30% of the people in the U.S. now do not believe the official lies. It doesn't matter what party they're coming from or any of that.
Yes.
I think we'll jump that and we'll get to 40 or 50 or 60% very rapidly, especially when all of a sudden everybody's super poor.
Yeah, that's going to be a big motivator right there.
It sure is. Seriously, we laugh about it, but I'm talking about food shortages.
Yes.
Banks shut down and ATMs being ripped out as people desperately try and get cash to go to the local grocery store, that kind of thing.
Right. You know, and I've been talking about the last couple of days, well, I shouldn't say, the last couple of days from yesterday to today, about the things going on in Haiti right now, for example.
Yeah.
That it is so bad that they're actually eating mud. People are eating mud mixed with a little bit of rice and butter, and they're being charged 3 cents a mud pie to just survive. And now it's even gotten much worse to where they can't even afford to eat mud. And they're dying on this stuff. And nobody's really highlighting that out there. No one's pointing to this. And a lot of it is because they removed all of the agriculture farming to put in these biofuel plants that they were growing. And it's just, no one's highlighting this.
Full well, by the way, I once saw a report that I probably shouldn't have that was intended for one of the GMO companies, and it said, if you introduce this, you will be dooming, 9.5% of the populace of this band of countries to death because you'll swap them over from subsistence farming to biofuels. And it's occurring just as forecast.
My goodness.
Well, another forecast here for you is that as the dollar dies, maybe 1 billion people will die, mostly of starvation and healthcare collapse. But it'll be because there's a third of the planet right now lives on $2 a day or less.
Yes.
And they will suddenly be hugely impoverished at levels that it will be impoverished here in the U.S. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
But we will not suffer the great majority of the pain here because it will be those people in the very poor countries that will be dying so fast they won't be able to bury them.
Right. Oh my. I'll ask you this question whenever we come back from the break here, because we're at the bottom of the hour. So I'm going to ask everyone to stay right where they are. Cliff High joins me from Half Past Human, and just before the break, we were talking about this amount of data sets that show that we were talking about the collapse of the dollar, and he said that many people will die at that point, and all paper currencies eventually die. My question I'm going to propose to him now is the amount of severity which he thinks in the cities. How bad will it be in the cities compared to out here like me?